Today, the fragile peace of the North Atlantic was officially shattered by a seismic event. It marks the most dangerous military escalation between the two nuclear superpowers, Russia and the United States, since the end of the Cold War. According to breaking reports just updated by Naval News and cross-verified by maritime surveillance data from Marine Link, early on the morning of May 12, 2026, a life-or-death confrontation has erupted at a strategic coordinate near Iceland. For the first time in modern history, the U.S. Navy decided to implement extreme measures. They attempted to encircle and seize a Russian merchant vessel, an oil tanker named the Marinera, right in international waters. However, the scenario calculated by the Pentagon completely collapsed. Responding to the American law enforcement effort was a brutal and unexpected display of military power from Moscow. A monster of the ocean, a Yasen-M class nuclear-powered attack submarine, suspected by Western intelligence to be the newly commissioned Arkhangelsk, suddenly surfaced from the crushing depths. It didn't just surface to reveal its presence. This massive submarine executed a reckless maneuver, cutting directly across the bow and blocking the path of the U.S. Navy's most modern guided missile destroyer, the USS Jack H. Lucas. This action forced the American warship to execute an emergency hard turn just in time to avoid a catastrophic collision that could have triggered World War III. Sources from the Russian Ministry of Defense, cited by TASS, stated firmly that they would protect national assets at any cost, even if it meant using a nuclear submarine as a human shield. Is this bravery? Or is it a reckless, high-stakes gamble? Just how terrifying is the power of the Yasen-M that it dares to challenge the U.S. fleet? We invite you to dive deep into this analysis with us right now. To truly understand the severity and the disparity in the balance of power during this recent encounter, we need to dissect the war machines that participated in this deadly game. This was not a clash between soulless masses of steel, but a battle of wits between the two highest peaks of 21st century military technology. First, let's talk about the protagonist that caused today's earthquake. The Yasen-M class nuclear attack submarine, or Project 885M as it is designated by Russia. In Western military circles, the name Yasen-M evokes genuine dread. Experts from the United States Naval Institute have repeatedly warned that this is the first class of Russian submarine to reach parity with, and in some aspects surpass, its American counterparts in terms of quietness. The submarine suspected of being involved, the Arkhangelsk, is an engineering masterpiece with a submerged displacement of up to 13,800 tons and a length of 130 meters. The biggest difference between the Yasen-M and previous generations like the Akula or Victor lies in the hull design. The entire hull is covered in a new generation of anechoic tiles made from synthetic rubber compounds. These are specifically capable of absorbing active sonar waves from the enemy instead of reflecting them. Inside, the KTP-6 nuclear reactor is designed with a natural circulation cooling cycle at low power. This helps completely eliminate the noise of water circulation pumps, which was the fatal weakness of older Soviet submarines. The sensor system of the Yasen-M is also a quantum leap forward. It is equipped with a massive spherical sonar complex named the Irtysh Amphora, which occupies the entire bow of the ship. The size of this sonar sphere is so large that Russian engineers were forced to move all 10 torpedo tubes from the bow to the sides of the hull
for centuries.
A design without precedent. This allows the Yasen-M to hear the engine noise of enemy warships from distances hundreds of nautical miles greater than its own detection range. But, ladies and gentlemen, silence is merely the factor that helps the Yasen-M survive. The weapon that makes it a true destroyer lies in the 10 vertical launching system, or VLS, silos, located behind the conning tower. This arsenal holds 32 cruise missiles of various types. And in today's event, the thing that made the US fleet hesitate was the rumor that this ship carries the Zircon hypersonic missile, also known as the 3M22 Zircon. The Zircon is no ordinary missile. According to technical reports from the Warzone and Naval News, the Zircon uses a scramjet engine that allows it to reach Mach 9. That is 9 times the speed of sound. At this terrifying speed, friction with the air creates a plasma sheet surrounding the missile body. This layer is capable of absorbing radar waves, making detection and target locking extremely difficult. With a range of 1,000 kilometers and the ability to perform complex trajectory changes in the terminal phase, it renders almost every current defensive system obsolete. The time a U.S. crew has to react once a zircon is detected is counted in mere seconds. On the other side of the battle line, the opponent the Yasen-M just stopped is the pride of the U.S. Navy. The guided missile destroyer USS Jack H. hull number DDG-125. This is not a standard Arleigh Burke. It is the first of the Flight 3 version, the most comprehensive upgrade yet. The heart of the USS Jack H. Lucas is the AN/SPY-6V1 air and missile defense radar. Compared to the SPY-1D radar on previous generations, the SPY-6 is 30 times more sensitive. It has faster signal processing capabilities and can track smaller targets at double the distance. This system is designed to create an iron dome at sea, specializing in countering ballistic missiles and stealth aircraft. However, the fatal weakness in today's confrontation lay in the operational environment. The SPY-6 radar, no matter how powerful, can only scan the sky and the sea surface. It is completely blind to threats lurking deep beneath the ocean floor. To hunt submarines, the U.S. destroyer relies on the AN/SQS-53C hull-mounted sonar and the AN/SQR-20 towed array sonar. Although these are state-of-the-art devices, detecting a Yasen-M moving slowly in absolute silence mode is incredibly difficult. Hiding within the complex thermal layers of the North Atlantic, it is no different than searching for a black needle in a dark room. The context of this event is equally technically complex. The Russian-flagged oil tanker Marinera, the target of the pursuit, was not simply carrying oil. According to OSINT intelligence sources gathered by Reuters, the U.S. accused the vessel of secretly transporting containers filled with high-end semiconductor components and specialized alloys for the aerospace industry. These are items on the strict embargo list that Washington has imposed on Moscow. The U.S. Navy planned to seize this ship to create a legal precedent and sever Russia's military supply chain. They believed that with their overwhelming superiority in surface ships in the region, Russia would not dare to resist. But they were wrong. Moscow views the Marinera as an inviolable asset. Deploying a strategic nuclear submarine worth billions of dollars, usually kept in absolute secrecy for nuclear deterrence, to escort a commercial cargo ship is an unprecedented decision in naval history. It shows just how highly Russia values the importance of this shipment. Or perhaps they wanted to send a message that Western sanctioned rules have no value to them. When the Yasen-M broke the surface, it turned a pursuit of economic criminals into a top-level military crisis. The disparity between a U.S. destroyer optimized for air defense and a Russian submarine optimized for destruction created an extremely tense standoff, which we will see clearly in the timeline of events. Now, let us turn back time to recreate the breathtaking 90 minutes that just took place in the North Atlantic, where the line between life and death was as thin as a hair. The event began at 4:15 a.m. on May 12, 2026, Coordinated Universal Time, UTC. The location of the incident was at latitude 58 degrees north, about 200 nautical miles southeast of the Icelandic coast. This is right in the middle of the renowned GIU-K gap. The weather at the time was extremely harsh, with sea state 6 conditions. White-capped waves up to 4 meters high were crashing continuously, accompanied by dense fog characteristic of the region, reducing optical visibility to less than 1 nautical mile. The target, the tanker Marinera, was silently cutting through the waves, moving at a speed of 14 knots, heading north-northeast. On the radar screen of the USS Jack H. the Marinera's signal appeared clearly. The atmosphere in the destroyer's Combat Information Center, or CIC, was as tight as a guitar string. The U.S. captain ordered the activation of Level 1 interception procedures. On international VHF radio frequencies, the American communications officer broadcast a stern message. Vessel Marinera, this is the United States Navy warship. Under International Sanction Order 1402, you are required to reduce speed, change course to heading 270, and prepare ladders for our boarding team to inspect your cargo. The response to this cold warning was absolute silence. The Marinera did not slow down, nor did it change course. It maintained its route like a ghost ship. By 5:15 a.m., realizing the opponent was non-compliant, the U.S. captain decided to escalate. He ordered the MH-60R Seahawk anti-submarine helicopter to take off from the flight deck at the stern. In the pitch-black darkness, the helicopter roared away, hovering directly above the mast of the Russian ship. Powerful searchlights from the helicopter beamed straight into the Marinetta's bridge, combined with high-output loudspeakers, broadcasting demands to stop the vessel in both Russian and English. Simultaneously, the USS Jack H. Lucas accelerated to 25 knots, slicing through the waves to close in on the port side of the Russian oil tanker at a distance of only 500 meters. The 127mm main deck gun was ordered to rotate its barrel towards the target as a show of force. But the fateful turning point occurred at exactly 5:28 a.m. In the sonar room of the U.S. ship, the operators straining their ears were suddenly startled by a strange sound. It was not the sound of a propeller. It was the loud blast of high-pressure compressed air escaping, known in the industry as a transient. That is the characteristic sound of the blowing ballast procedure for an emergency surfacing. And the most terrifying part was that this signal did not come from afar. It originated from a depth of 200 meters, directly beneath the waters just ahead of the U.S. destroyer's bow. The collision alarm siren screamed piercingly throughout the USS Jack H. Lucas. Less than 2 minutes later, the sea surface, 800 meters ahead of the U.S. bow, suddenly boiled violently like a giant pot of water. From amidst the columns of white foam, the massive, cold, black conning tower of the Yasen-M submarine tore through the water. It rose up menacingly, like a steel mountain emerging from the ocean. That image was truly shocking. A nuclear attack submarine performing an emergency surfacing right in front of an enemy warship's bow is the most provocative and dangerous action in naval warfare. A distance of 800 meters for ships with such massive inertia is a suicide distance. Immediately, shouting commands rang out on the bridge of the U.S. ship. Hard to starboard, hard to starboard. The entire 10,000-ton vessel shuddered violently as the steering system worked at maximum capacity. The USS Jack H. Lucas listed heavily to one side. Seawater washed over the deck. Thanks to the ultra-fast reaction of the helm team, the bow of the U.S. ship scraped past the stern of the Russian submarine by a mere margin. They avoided a collision that would almost certainly have led to a nuclear disaster. As the American ship regained its balance, the officers on the bridge looked through their binoculars and froze. On the spine of the submarine Arkhangelsk, the vertical missile launch hatches were in a half-open state, a sign that they were ready to fire at any moment. On the submarine's conning tower, Russian sailors appeared with heavy machine guns aiming directly at the U.S. ship. At 5:45 a.m., a cold voice, thick with a Slavic accent, rang out on the international radio channel, breaking the silence. United States Warship 125. This is a nuclear attack submarine of the Russian Federation Navy. You are committing an act of illegal aggression against a commercial vessel protected by the Russian Federation. We require you to change course and maintain a safe distance immediately. Any further provocation will be considered an act of war, and we will respond with kinetic force. The warning made no attempt to hide the intention to use weapons. The captain of the USS Jack H. Lucas faced a brain-twisting decision. His powerful SPY-6 radar system had locked on to the Russian submarine's conning tower. But he knew that at this point-blank range, while his air defense missiles could blast the enemy tower, a torpedo or a Zircon missile from the Russian sub would also tear his ship into 100 pieces in a split second. This was a situation of mutual assured destruction on a tactical scale. After a lightning-fast consultation via a secure hotline with the U.S. 6th Fleet Command in Italy, the American side decided to back down to avoid uncontrolled escalation. The U.S. destroyer reduced speed and widened its formation distance to 5 nautical miles. By 6:15 a.m., as the weak light of dawn began to flicker, the movement formation had changed completely. The submarine Arkhangelsk did not dive, but continued to move boldly on the surface, hugging the side of the tanker Marinera like a giant bodyguard. The image of a nuclear submarine openly leading the way for an oil tanker, leaving the most modern U.S. warship behind, has become the symbol of this event. The confrontation ended its hot phase at 7 a.m. as the Russian ships entered a safe zone. Ladies and gentlemen, After witnessing these breathless developments, the question is, why did Russia choose such a drastic and risky reaction? And how will this event change the global military landscape? To answer this, let's listen to the analysis from leading experts at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS, and the International Institute for Strategic Studies. First, experts affirm that Russia's action is a classic example of the escalate to de-escalate doctrine. In the context of being overwhelmed by U.S. surface ship numbers and economic sanctions, Moscow understands they cannot play by Western rules. Instead of a legal or diplomatic confrontation, they chose to play their strongest card right from the start: a nuclear submarine. The surfacing of the Arkhangelsk carries a profoundly deep political message. Usually, a submarine is a secret weapon. Its power lies in invisibility. But when it surfaces, it becomes a declaration of sovereignty. Russia wants to tell the US, we are here, right in front of your face, and we are ready to go all in. By pushing the situation to the very edge of the precipice of nuclear war, Russia forced U.S. commanders to reconsider the price of seizing an oil tanker. Is a shipment of components worth having a U.S. fleet attacked with nuclear-capable missiles? The American answer today was clearly no. Second, this event has exposed the collapse of the, quote, NATO lake concept. For the past 2 decades, the Atlantic has been considered the backyard of the U.S. and its European allies, a place where they held absolute control over sea lines of communication. But the bold and challenging appearance of the Yasen-M class has ended that era. The fact that a Russian submarine could silently approach the US's most modern destroyer to within 800 meters is a major failure in NATO's anti-submarine warfare, or ASW, operations. It proves that even though the US possesses the best air defense radars in the world, like the AN/SPY-6, they still face serious gaps in detecting Russia's ultra-quiet, open ocean submarines. If the Arkhangelsk had not chosen the surface, but instead silently launched torpedoes from the deep, the USS Jack H might have been sunk without ever knowing where the enemy was. Third, we cannot ignore the game-changing factor: the Zircon missile. The presence of this hypersonic weapon has upended traditional rules of engagement. Previously, U.S. carrier strike groups relied on the Aegis multi-layered defense system to create a safe zone. But with the Zircon, that safe zone has been erased. In the standoff situation this morning, the helplessness of the U.S. destroyer stemmed largely from the fear of the Zircon. At such close range, also known as point-blank range, the flight time of a Zircon missile to the target is only a few seconds. The computer systems of the U.S. ship, no matter how modern, do not have enough time to calculate a firing solution. Russia has successfully used hypersonic technology to compensate for its disadvantage in ship numbers, creating an asymmetric battlefield where the one with the faster gun beats the one with the thicker armor. Finally, this event sets an incredibly dangerous legal precedent. If using nuclear submarines to escort ships violating sanctions becomes a new normal, then the entire international embargo system will collapse. Other nations could learn from Russia, using military power to protect illegal commercial activities. This will push international waters back to the era of the law of the jungle, where the power of the gun decides who has the right of way. The future of the North Atlantic is now more unpredictable than ever. Certainly after this event, the US will have to significantly increase its force of Virginia-class attack submarines in this region to re-establish the balance. A new arms race beneath the ocean floor has officially begun, and these freezing waters are about to become incredibly hot. Ladies and gentlemen, the journey through those breathless 90 minutes in the North Atlantic today has concluded. But the aftershocks it leaves behind will echo forever in strategic meeting rooms from Washington to Moscow. The event of the nuclear submarine Arkhangelsk surfacing to block a US warship is not just a bold military action. It is the bell signaling the end of an era and opening a new chapter full of uncertainty. We are entering a world where great powers no longer hesitate to use the most destructive weapons to resolve economic disputes. This event is the clearest proof that peace at sea is not a given. It is maintained by fragile restraint between fingers hovering over missile launch buttons. Today the guns did not fire, But what about tomorrow? Is this event the spark for fiercer clashes in the future? News.
The Yasen-M features
10
a
minutes
powerful
every
reactor.
day will
This
continue to
schematic view
closely
highlights the
monitor
pressurized
every
water
single
reactor.
detail
The
of
spherical
this
sonar
historic
array at the bow
confrontation
is the submarine's
to bring you
eyes
the
and
most
ears,
truthful and
mapping the
timely
ocean floor with
reports.
precise
If you find this
acoustic
in-depth analysis provides valuable knowledge, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next videos. Please leave a comment below. In your opinion, was Russia's action a genius strategic move or irresponsible recklessness? Thank you for watching.